Sup peeps, Random Person here, and you're listening to Random in Person. Now for those of you who don't know what Random Person is, I'm going to give a brief explanation or a brief intro. What is a random person? I is a random person, or rather some call me the random person. My username that I go by is Random Person. You can also call me RP. Now specifically I also go by Random Person 21119 or Random Person 1320 because a lot of people, believe it or not, like to be called Random Person, and it's just so frustrating when I go onto a site and I say I want to be called Random Person, and they say nope, Random Person was taken 5 years ago by a user who never logs on. So I had to find some number to put after my name. So Random Person 21119 or Random Person 1320. Now, what does Random Person do? Well, I am a heavy set nerd. I play video games, I read comics, I watch anime, read manga. I'm into almost like any nerd thing you can think of, except My Little Pony. Axel the Beast has been trying to get me to watch that. But specifically, what Random Person does is he's a Zelda fan. He loves talking about Zelda, drawing about Zelda, writing about Zelda. Actually, no. I don't write about Zelda. I don't do fanfics. It's just better to have a third thing. And so what I do on Random in Person is I take this opportunity to talk about the random things that come to my head about Zelda. And I do so randomly. Now, for those of you who do know me, this by no means that I'm going to stop doing Random in Person on the Zelda Dungeon podcast. I'm still going to be doing that. I've actually been wanting to do YouTube videos for a long time, even before the Random in Person. I was going to wait like another year or two, get some funds going and, get some stuff in my life sorted out. But I decided to go ahead and start this up because on the Zelda Dungeon podcast, they have that 8-minute time limit thing, and they need that because, a lot of people submit. But I sometimes have a hard time fitting all my stuff into 8 minutes. And I'm so focused on time, I can't get all the important stuff out. So, and also the podcast only comes out like once a month. So I've got like 5 ideas and I've already got 3 podcasts in the works waiting to be aired. So I figure with this, I can air more ideas, I can thoroughly explain them, and I can, have more spread out with putting stuff on here and on their podcast. And who knows, maybe I'll talk to Caleb. Caleb still runs the Zelda Dungeon YouTube, right? Talk to Caleb, Mosses, I don't know, actually. I'll talk to one of them, some Zelda Dungeon YouTube staff, see if they'll let me put these videos on there. Kind of doubt it since I don't like to show my face. But anyway, that's enough about the Random Person. You already know about me. If you don't know enough about me, that's too bad for you because I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about Zelda. And what I'm going to be talking about to you with Zelda is a topic that many of you probably been expecting me to be discussing, Skyward Sword. Now don't press that pause button. I know what you guys are going to think. I'm just going to sit here and bash Skyward Sword. Oh, listen, you might actually be surprised at what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, right.
Now, before I go into the depths of Skyward Sword, let's look at a brief history of the Legend of Zelda series. The Legend of Zelda series is that. It's a series. It's not just a bunch of games that comes out like Mario. It actually has continuity to it. The only problem is Nintendo hasn't really been that good with its continuity when it comes to Zelda. When it comes to a lot of their games, actually. But we as fans, we really didn't care. The games were good and we kept playing them. Then there came this little game called Ocarina of Time. Maybe you've heard of it. Not really sure, It's not really that big of a deal. Best game ever. Ocarina of Time came out and it introduced more continuity to the series, and we began taking continuity more seriously, we as Zelda fans. And the game actually started, bringing out a better continuity to this series. We had Majora's Mask after that, and we had Wind Waker, and we had Twilight Princess, all sequels to Ocarina of Time. And Ocarina of Time had that whole split timeline theory, which is now canon, no longer a theory. So continuity started to become a more important thing, and it started to look concrete because of all those legit sequels that we had. It still wasn't, perfect. Wasn't even really that good when you compare it to other video games, but it was getting better as far as Zelda standards go. Now, Nintendo decided to come out with this game called SKYWARD SWORD. And when they did, they introduced it to the public as not only the prequel to Ocarina of Time, the game that established the heavyset continuity, but a prequel to the entire Zelda timeline. Yeah, no pressure. So, the plot. The plot starts out with a kind of prequel history, kind of like A Link to the Past and Wind Waker, more like Wind Waker. It talks about this war between this goddess named Helia and this demon named Demise. And they fought in a war, and Helia eventually won. But before they even fought, Helia sent the Helians, or the humans, up into the sky, along with this ultimate power known as the Triforce. She sent it up to the sky. She sent all that stuff up to the sky to be protected. And then she put clouds there to protect them, because we all know the opposite of evil is clouds. Evil cannot penetrate clouds. So now that brings us to today's age, and we have our hero Link, who's growing up in the sky, not really too many cares in the world. He's got his best friend Zelda, little bossy girl. They're allowed to be best friends. They don't always have to randomly meet. Happened in Minish Cap. And, they're just living their life, enjoying their life. And then Zelda gets into trouble, and Link must go down to the surface world to save her. Now, along his way preparing to go to the surface world, he meets his new BFF, Fi, who starts treating him like he's an idiot. So the two go down to rescue Zelda. Along the way, they meet this guy. They meet this guy called Girahim. And it turns out that he was the one that brought Zelda to the surface, and he's trying to capture her so that he can resurrect the ancient demon Demise, and the world can be thrown into chaos again. Because Demise is apparently this guy's master. Alright, spoilers from here on out. I don't know, I guess I'll put a spoiler picture or word or something, and then you can mute it until that goes away. Eventually you learn that Zelda is Helia. And in order to, she's got to seal herself away so that Demise will never be resurrected. The only way she can be freed is if you kill Demise's current form, known as the Imprisoned. So the rest of the game consists of you fleeing from Zelda. Rescuing Zelda, or going on an adventure to rescue Zelda and destroying Demise. Thereby destroying Demise, you would be rescuing Zelda. That's how you do it. That's it. I'm not saying it again. Alright, thinking about this plot. It was done rather well. Okay, the way it was told, there were three parts that really stuck out to me during the game. The part where Zelda and Link reunite at the Temple of Time. The part where Zelda and Link meet up back in time, and Zelda tells Link to wake her up. Man. And then is the third part that really stuck out to me, was the part just before Zelda gets captured by Girahim at the end, and you have to fight off the horde thing and Girahim. Those three parts to me were very cinematically good. Now, the rest of the game tells the story like a storybook. It's kind of tradition in Zelda to tell the game like a storybook. The only game that didn't do that was Twilight Princess, because it was trying to be like other games. Because most games tell their stories like a movie. Now me, I'm personally more attracted to the movie kind of storytelling. So this method of storytelling that Skyward Sword used, except for those three parts, I wasn't really too much impressed. Doesn't mean they were bad. It just means that I myself was not really astounded by them. I personally did not get a kick out of them. That's just looking at the plot by itself. The plot as a prequel now, as a series of games, the Skyward Sword is a prequel. Looking at it as a prequel, it sucks. Prequels have this kind of, why do you make a prequel in the first place? Is it just to make a new story in a land you've already visited? You could have done that with a sequel. The whole point of a prequel is to explain concepts to the story that were brought up before. Now the Zelda lore has all these mysteries that could have been explained, and they weren't in Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword explains like a couple mysteries that don't really need explaining, or people thought were done wrong. And I mean, its whole story, I would have scrapped the whole story. The whole story is about a personal relationship between Zelda and Link. I would have put it on something important like the war that happened in Ocarina of Time, or the creation of Hyrule. Again, that was told in Ocarina of Time. Something important that happened in the past of Zelda lore. That's what prequels are known to do. Skyward Sword had the creation of the Master Sword, but it didn't really focus around that detail. It kind of had it as a by the way. If it had focused around the Master Sword creation, I think it would have done much better as a prequel. So, I'm a literature nut. For those who don't know, I love literature, yet I hate reading. But in this game, the literature by itself is okay. It's decent, but in regards to its series, it really fails heavily. And keep in mind, this happened after all those other games that came out that were actually keeping the continuity flowing better. So it's like you've got Zelda on this crooked track, and then it's starting to straighten up, and you're like, yes, I can see it. It's finally going to be on a decent path. And then, boom, Skyward Sword just knocks it right off course onto a different course completely. You're like, those of us who noticed it were like, we have to start all over again. The game itself is just, with its continuity wise, it took Zelda off of it set it flying on a weird course. When it was straight, it was finally straightening up, and that really had a heavy impact on my decision of the game.